Hello, everyone. We're back with Judith Sutera today to talk about her new inclusive language translation of the Rule of Benedict. It's available in both rule only and commentary version. And today we're going to talk about the commentary, continuing our conversation from last time. So, Hans, you can take it away.
Thank you, Judith. The book is out, and this is really doing well, and we're very excited about it. I wondered what inspired you to add the commentary as you were working on the translation, and to what extent did your professional, your committed life situation contribute to that? That would be, I think, would be interesting to hear more about.
Well, it started with social pressure. There's a lot of oblates who have been reading Joan Chittister's commentary on the rule for the last 20-some years,
Sure.
and they really wanted another day-by-day text. And we've had kind of academic commentaries since hers came out. Terence's wonderful academic commentary and the English translation from Holscher's, but not something for ordinary people in the most recent past. So the idea was to have something that people could have a meditation for every day as they read the rule. So I did it based on people saying, when are you going to do that? Because I use a lot of this type of reflection on the rule when I give retreats. So it was actually that I decided that I probably needed to do the commentary, and then at the same time was hearing a lot about the as we talked about in the last interview, a lot about people wanting an inclusive translation of the rule. So as I thought about doing the commentary, I thought I'm going to have the translation of the rule that I want in order to make the commentary with that. So they happened kind of in tandem. And, you know, I've thought about doing it before, and I'm probably still really not ready to do it. But as you asked about my own experience, it takes a lot of experience before you can think you have anything to say. And the bigger challenge than that is that I will admit that I talk a better game than I play. So that's the real challenge, is to say these things to other people, and you're really challenging yourself when you do that. And sometimes I look at those questions and I think, oh, I don't want to answer that. This is really hard. So even now that the book's out, I find it kind of intimidating, but it's also something you can get your mind around. So it's based on the ordinary day-to-day living. What are the challenges around something like the discipline of prayer or the welcoming of other people? It's an everyday thing. And so I tried to craft questions that would address that as everyday things. Who are you going to run into today that's going to be difficult to welcome?
So I know when you wrote it, you had a particular times set aside, so to speak, to focus on it. And I got the impression from you that the commentary inspired the translation, and vice versa, almost on a daily basis. Or am I correct about that, or did you?
Yeah. No, I would start with one section of the rule, reading it carefully, and then thinking about what I thought it meant, and then looking at the text. And as you craft the text, you have to look at those words over and over again. So I think as the translation progressed, I started to see words that I hadn't seen before, nuances that I hadn't seen before, especially as I was reading commentaries, the academic commentaries like Terence's. As I was working on it, I could see the richness of a particular word that I'd been reading for years and hadn't really thought about. And when he would say, you know, how this word was understood in Benedict's time, then that shifted my understanding of that word and broadened the way the commentary came out.
And I have, from kind of just perusing the book, I haven't read all of it yet. You have dates for each section, just like you
Right.
have in the translation part.
Right.
But it's amazing how your questions and the commentary, if you follow it through the year, you will read the same commentary 3 times, right?
Right. That's
And,
why there are 3 questions.
exactly. And I thought that was really, from my point of view, really well thought out in that sense that, you know, the seasons and so on
Right.
are in there. So
Right. Yeah, that's the beauty of the rule, with the paced reading of it. And those are traditional datings that have been used for decades that allow one to read the rule straight through 3 times a year.
mhm,
The challenge and the beauty of that is that it makes you read the whole rule.
right.
It's just like the lectionary makes us read parts of the gospel that if we were just going to pick something to preach on, we might skip certain parts, or we wouldn't want to think about certain parts, or they'd be hard to preach about. And so there's that challenge of having to look at every day. And I think that's why very few people tackle doing a full commentary. It's so much easier to write a book that has a chapter on hospitality and a chapter on prayer and a chapter on work or whatever, and have general thoughts. But when you have to do something for every single section of the rule, it's very challenging. And I know people who say, I just can't make myself read all those long instructions about what prayers to say at what time on which day, and so I just skip those.
Mhm.
So that was a real challenge, was how can I say something that's going to make those chapters interesting enough or challenging enough that people won't just skip over it. That's one of the hardest things, is the boring parts
Exactly.
or what we consider the boring parts, or
Mhm.
the parts where it's talking about something that's difficult, like, beating children or whatever. And the intention with the commentary was to spend the first paragraph explaining what Benedict's milieu is.
Mhm.
Why is he talking about these things? How did they express these things in the culture that he lived in? And then the second paragraph of each, of course, is, but what's this got to do with us today? So you can get through the part about sleeping with your knife, and then you've got to say, what's this got to do with us today? And of course, that's one of the chapters I found quite rich when I started to read it. And so I really enjoyed the chapters that we think of as throwaway chapters today, because
Interesting.
there's a lot of richness in there, but you have to mine for it. That's probably why very few people tackle a full commentary.
Right. So it sounds like you actually, even though you have read the rule on a daily basis for all these many years, um, you learn something new. And I
Every
wonder,
day.
is your experience of doing this work, has it already changed the way you now sit down on a daily basis?
Oh yeah.
I would imagine it could not be otherwise, but
Yeah, I listen to more of the words differently,
mhm,
because I've spent time with every word and the nuances of that word. And
mhm.
again, the real tricky part is the challenge to my life, because now that I've spent all that time with it and addressed it for other people, I find it a lot more challenging myself. And it reminds me that I talk a better game than I play.
I think we could all admit to that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So, what are your hopes for the audience there in terms of your own experience? How do you hope that will, quote unquote, translate into a broader audience and the people who are inspired and want to follow and go walk with the rule in their own lives?
I think there are several audiences, and the first is the people who've never read the rule or have always kind of heard about it, but never actually dug into it. I'm thinking especially of students, you know, in Benedictine colleges like yours and ours, where you have a lot of students who take an introductory course in the Benedictine spirituality, or in a seminary where it's looked at as part of the spiritual tradition, or even a liberal arts school where it's seen as part of world literature. If this is the first time these people are seeing the rule, I want to give them something that they can really get their minds around, so that they can get past those parts that are strange or confusing and see the context. So there's an audience for which I want it to be educational as a new thing. Then there's the audience of oblates and people who are devoted to the rule but are not in a monastery themselves, but really want to delve more deeply into the spirituality. And they love having something that they can read every day, and they love having new things to think about. And so my hope is to enrich the lives of all of the lay people who are trying to make this part of their lives. And then the other audience, of course, is our own religious. And I've heard good things already from some of our sisters about how it's a nice, simple meditation for them. And the questions are such that even if you have been reading the rule for 40 years or 60 years or 2 years, there's something there that applies to today. If I'm reading about hospitality, who am I going to run into today that I'm going to have to think about differently? So I can see it helping people from the very beginning of their relationship to the rule to a lifelong relationship with the rule. That was my intent. I hope it succeeds for a few people.
I think it will. Certainly we have been so pleased to see the results of your labor, and now also seeing that it's being well received as well from our end of things. So we are very excited about this, and grateful for the time and effort that you have put into this. It's a real service to the church at large, for sure.
Thank you. Well, now that it's finished, I can say it's my pleasure. And I really am thrilled at the reception it's received, at the responses from people that I highly respect, who, you know, said they felt it was an original contribution to the literature. That is very humbling and very exciting.
Exactly, I bet. Yeah. No, congratulations, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for your time today in talking about Judith Sutera's new inclusive language translation of the rule and the commentary, both available now. Thank you so much for all your work, Judith. We really appreciate it, and for your time today.
My pleasure.